Mr. Evan312 here, and welcome to an end of the year video. Well, New Year's Eve is a day to kind of look back on life, to kind of look back and see what things you did right, what things you did wrong, things you hope to achieve, and things you did achieve. I don't know. And I thought that might be a good way to kind of wrap the year off. Personally, my only real goal was to break what seems to be my 2980 sub lock, but yeah, well, you can only control so much, right? I mean, I've done my best. I've kind of kicked on my production schedule a little bit, and I mean, I made some stuff. I think I made some pretty good stuff, but I mean, it's my own fault for going off the radar as long as I did. So today I wanted to go back over my Steam Workshop and see some of the things I did, look at my oldest builds, and for some of those we can even look over and see new versions that I've done, and just kind of look at where I've come from and where I am today. Oh jeez. Okay, so I went back to look at my oldest world file, which was the first thing I ever uploaded, and this happened. That's it. That's understandable. I mean, I did make the thing back in September of 2014. That was back when DX9 was still the main thing. So, shoot. Alright, so that didn't work out, but instead we're gonna go back and look at all of my oldest blueprints, which I was gonna do anyway, but we're gonna skip it forward. So, this is where it began, guys. The Halo craze that would go on to define about probably 70-80% of my workshop content. Here we go. Yeah, this is all my oldest Halo ships. You may even recognize a couple of these from a video I did using them. In fact, it's like the old Halcyon, old Paris, old SVD, and old CCS class battlecruisers, which I did in actually probably one of my most popular videos to date, right behind my most popular video, which was using Star Wars drones, which I have on my workshop. I'm just not sure what I need to make them run. But then again, I load these things up with absolute basics and some of their mods. These things are so old. Many of the mods that they used back then don't even work anymore. But yeah, let's look at each of these and see what their new versions are like. Okay, so the UNSC Destroyer. Obviously, this was a Halberd class. It's missing a few things, obviously, like the armor thrusters it used, although I'm amazed that Sage updated his industrial thrusters. I forgot how cool these things used to look. I haven't used them in years. Alright, so yeah, obviously this is a Halberd class. It's missing a few things. I'm actually surprised at the detail I went to with it. But let's compare it with its new version. Oh man, talk about a ship I was proud to have done this past year. This is one of my favorite builds that I've put out, at least in the latter half of 2018. Easily one of my favorite science fiction ships in history. And I think I did it pretty well, even considering how relatively blocky the front prow looks. It also looks fairly smooth. And I got the profile a lot better than the old version of it. Alright, so obviously, like I said, it's not the worst attention to detail, but there's also a lot of things, like look here even, just you see each of the 3 protrusions back towards the back. I even did, and to some extent, the lower, I think that's supposed to be a small hangar bay. But because the Halberd has such a Spartan interior that they, instead of a proper acceleration lane, they just basically gave it a catapult to shoot dropships out into space. But yeah, I'm actually surprised at the level of detail, but definitely nothing compared to this. And also, this is a ship as part of a series where I actually did things to scale. But man, this thing was out, I think, back when turrets were brand new. The modding community was pretty darn new. I mean, I remember back when the Sage industrial thruster was like one of the coolest mods at the time, along with some of Darth Biomech stuff, if you guys may or may not remember that. Next, of course, actually this is the oldest publicly published blueprint on my workshop. It's the old Paris class heavy frigate, obviously. again, I'm surprised at how much that my relatively good attention to detail back in the day. Although I mean, it's definitely leaves a lot to be desired. I even tried to go with the sort of splotched armor pattern that most UNSC ships use, but let's see what it looks like now. Yeah, definitely some improvement. If anything, this old Paris class has some is kind of androgynous. I mean, it kind of bears features from all of the 3 different UNSC frigates. Obviously, it's in a lot of ways it looks sleeker, but it's also a lot more basic. And then, of course, we have my ultra detailed Paris class build, also using no mods, unlike these old things. Man, a lot has changed since... Here, when did I make this? 2015, everybody. This thing came from 2015. And definitely looking back across my old builds, it does... I mean, anyone should do... I think anyone should do this, just with whatever... Even if it's not, like, space engineer stuff, I think whatever work you've done in the past, it definitely is... I think it's a good idea to kind of look back and see where you came from. I mean, this Paris class is longer than my old Halcyon. Man, she's cute, though. I mean, these guys are kind of cute, too. Just look at them. They're so chubby. Now, sadly, I don't have an updated version of the SDV Heavy Corvette, but I do definitely have an updated Halcyon. You guys will definitely recognize this one if you watched my older video of one back when I was doing fleet battles. And yes, I am trying to figure out a way to return to that. Looking around at the interior, there used to be one of those ABA guns sitting along the length of this thing. Those huge ABA guns. Those were like some of the first real cannons alongside what is that Ninja Pirates guys back when he was making his SDD guns, his CSD guns. That's right. And we have here Harken to the Bridge. I think this is one of my first real blueprints that worked with any sort of interior. And I mean, there's actually kind of a similarity between this thing's interior and the layout of my new Halcyon. Yeah, once again, pretty significant improvement. I mean, Jesus, the proportions are all wrong. I don't even know where I got this idea for there to be all these forward thrusters up here on this front segment. But I'm surprised at the level of details I did achieve. Like the, I don't know what these... They're like these forward dishes, and then there's one on the back side too. You see it up there where the rocket turret sits. I think I kind of drew elements from the old Halcyon, which is my favorite design, which this one emulates, and some elements of the Halo Reach version. I actually... Is Halo out of Reach? Holy crap. Is it really been almost 10 years since Reach came out? 2010. I had no idea. Holy crap. So Halo Reach, and obviously its new rendition of the Halcyon class, came out 5 years before this thing. And of course, this is all the way back in the early 2000s with the Halo Combat Evolved, one of my favorite video games of all time. Holy crap. Nostalgia shot right there. But yeah, as you can see, quite a bit of changes, but hey, we all start out from somewhere. Next up is my Marathon class. This one I think was a lot more true to form, but the thing is, I think I borrowed this build. Back in the day, there was a different really good Halo builder named Unauthorized who definitely helped inspire a lot of my favorite builds back in the day. And if you go and check out his workshop, he and I started at a relatively similar level of style and detail, and we've evolved into much better design practices and so on. Obviously, our new ships look significantly better. In fact, he even used my old Paris class and scaled it up into large grid to publish as one of his builds, so we've definitely inspired each other quite a bit. And I believe this Marathon was his, if I recall. I'm not sure. Or at least his old one at the time. He was one of the first people that really started a series of mini ships. Mini Halo ships, which eventually would get me going to build my own. Alright, all the way back to here. Yeah, the interior was a bit more expansive, it looks like. Where did, is there a lower deck on this one? Again, this is where the old ABA cannons would have been. I remember how cool that mod was when it first came out. It was the first real expensive weapons pack, although people shortly afterwards started building new ones. So let's see what this new thing looks like. Wow. Wow, now that one is a pretty substantial shift in detail. I mean, like most of my early builds, it got some things right. I even say it got most things right, but wow, old ship be thick. Damn.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
This ship didn't get as much attention as a lot of my other builds, especially once I completely redid a lot of the detailing, because I go off of Sins of the Prophets mods, the Sin of the Prophets models for using the fantastic work of Annihilator 102, I think it is. Amazing three-dimensional modeler who does a lot of the work for modeling their ships over there. He created the amazing design for the Artemis class battlecruiser, amongst many other non-canon ships. Well, non-canon ship designs. I really love how this ship turned out, especially using. I used some of the new details and kept some of the old ones, but wow, that one's pretty stark contrast if you ask me. If anything, it's just a sign of how far I've come. Now, I don't really have updated designs of these. What was that? Now, I really don't have any updated designs of these three ships, but oh boy, this one is definitely an unauthorized build. Funny when you put it that way, but unauthorized. He made this carrier, and I adapted it. Although I did add some changes to it, like I added these interior blocks along the front prow and on the top here, as well as adding different details. I revamped the interior hangar. Oh god, now this is pretty hideous. What did I do here? Is there an upper deck? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Because before I built my CAS class assault carrier, there wasn't a lot of good Covenant ships that weren't unauthorized work. So he was definitely inspirational to me in doing that. Did I put the command bridge up here? Aha, here we go. Oh yeah, there was stairs here. Here we go. What the hell? I thought this was a good-looking Covenant bridge, and his build didn't have this. I decided to completely redo mine, but this was all the way back in 2016, if I recall. Oof. Man, things used to be so different. I mean, I think this thing even came out before they moved to DX11, if I recall. Holy crap. Man, did this thing get an upgrade. Wow. Man, though, this ship from back in 2016, so it's not that recent, and I need to make a revamp of it, but wow, though. I gotta tell you, though, the CAS is something I'm quite proud of, because it's one of the few ships I've built, it's one of the really big ships I've built that was entirely from scratch. How come this thing doesn't have any power? There we go. There we go. One of the things I loved most about making the CAS class was doing this weird hangar, because I decided to do a build design based off of the hangar scene in Combat Evolved when you're battling your way through the CCS class battlecruiser that's been grounded for repairs. Man, it's dark in here. Something I also wanted to look at is some of my movie builds that I both made back in the day to make into films, and ones that I want to use for future films or readaptations or whatever. Okay, so these three ships were craft I made for my old film Derelict, and they were made at probably about the same time as many of those ships we've seen already. So here we have the sort of the hero ship, which was FDRS Concorde. Oh, yeah, I did remember it right. This is the main character's ship. Kind of took a lot of influence from the ship Firefly. It's a Firefly class cargo hauler. And obviously, but I went with a rotating engine pods going around the side. For some reason, they're damaged. Wonder why. There's obviously, I don't have the mod in for that. And it came with a piston, using pistons to lower the landing bay, so obviously the ship would come down and then it would lower its pod, and then whoever was on board ship would come out and had the forward cockpit here. And it was the first ship I ever really designed with any sort of utility. I mean, most of these design factors were for film, but it had some use to it. Now keep in mind, I didn't actually I haven't published this yet, the new Concorde, which will be used sometime in the future. So here's the new one. I think I made this fully vanilla too, so it did away. It went with. I decided to go for an somewhat asymmetrical look. It's probably about the same size. It's got a lot less interior, but a much better interior. Next up we have, well, back then it was called the USS Antioch, although in the film it was called the Delcata, and it's an Elk-class frigate. Oh man, back in the day when catwalks were used to blend into armor, to cover over pieces where armor was too thick. I mean, this was before like half ramps and everything, but meant to be. I don't remember even what the faction's called. Back then it was called the United Systems Navy or something, but meant to be the kind of mainstay warship, light warship. Here we go. Look at that. I think the Elk class was one of my better looking early designs, and it's really come out a lot better in this version. Although actually here, I also recently, again, this one isn't published either, but I also went with a more recent set piece version of it, which I think made it look a lot better. Much better rear engine bay, although I don't want it to be divided like that in the future. It doesn't have an interior like this one does, but this ship was actually one of my first ever truly vanilla builds, and one focused with having an actual interior and being survival ready. And then of course this one, I could give it an interior as well, but made to look good for the sake of being used in a film. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Leopard class battleship. Again, also features in derelict like the other two. It only really features towards the end segment, when the main character manages to get up into orbit via a stolen ship and finds this abandoned United Systems Navy battleship hanging in orbit. And this ship, though, has some history to it. I built this ship completely without using symmetry. And back when I had my potato Toshiba laptop that I was making everything on, I built this thing completely in the dark, actually. And I had this darkness mod on that allowed me to actually build something this large. Like, this was huge. This was a huge ship back in the day. And I built it completely without symmetry. Yeah, I would say that there is also a fair bit of improvement here. For starters, I really like how the proportions now looks a lot longer, sleeker, more utilitarian. I don't know why I used so many ribs back in the day, and then again, maybe it's because that guy Ectosage did it so much, and his builds were really detailed back in the day when everything used to look so much more plain. Like the blocks, everything looked so bland back in the day. I mean, we didn't know it until blocks were all completely revamped, but oh my god. So this ship is one of my favorites, one of my favorite designs ever. And I am missing a key mod here. It uses those X3 heavy batteries by what's his name? I forget his name. I'll show it on screen probably, but I just realized it's like the surprised Pikachu meme. And of course, this is like that other frigate I showed. This is actually the set piece version. It doesn't have a real interior or anything, but it's one of my biggest ships, actually. I think it's longer than any of my Unicy ones, except for like the Cradle, and really like the really big ones, like the Punic class. Let's see, how long is it? She long. Let me see. Go back here. Yeah, about 140 blocks long. I mean, including like the antenna and other little bits. So probably about 125 blocks long in terms of actual body, but oh wow, though. I mean, just look at these two. It's almost night and day, although you can see some base design elements shared. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video of mine looking back over old designs, new designs, kind of appreciating where I started and where I've ended up now, and using this evidence of obviously having striven for self-improvement and increasing my skills, that we can look forward to going into the new year and bringing even better stuff in the future, because anything you love doing, you will always continue to try and learn how to do better. And certainly in respect to films and building set pieces and stuff like that, absolutely. I absolutely always will strive to improve, to accept criticisms, critiques, to accept advice, to learn from past mistakes, and continue to build on future successes. Happy New Year's, guys.